Thank you. Am I getting a thumbs up somewhere? Okay, good. Thank you. You know, when I got this mail and I checked out what is it, and I wanted to know, what do you want me to talk about? And they said, it's open, whatever. I thought, oh, wow. You know, they always want to hear the whole life story and blah, blah, blah. You know, I want to talk about global warming. Let me see. I want to talk about Trump's idiocy. I want to talk about animals and what they mean. I mean, it was just so much. But I had to come down a little bit. I want to talk about a journey. You know, we all have our own journeys. And mine began when I was between 10 and 11. My mom married an American and we moved to the United States. That wasn't my wish. That wasn't my choice. And I was 13, I was tired of my stepfather and I left home. I ran away. When I was 14, I was a total heroin addict. When I was 16, I gave birth to my son at home because I was so afraid that if I went into a hospital and they saw the marks on my arms, that they were going to take the baby away from me, even though I had cleaned up. When I was 26, I got involved with a guy, a dealer, and the whole story of that ended with a robbery, gone very, very bad, a murder, leaving that site, and subsequently a police officer getting shot. So not one, but 2 murders within the space of 24 hours. That was my journey and the end of my life as I knew it. And I really thought the end of my life, because at that point, I was very dedicated to taking my own life. Number one, because of what I had seen. To watch a person die in front of your eyes and knowing that you had a part in that. No, I didn't hold the gun, but my lifestyle, my choices put both of those people where they were. That is definitely a life-altering event, and I couldn't handle it. And I also knew that my life was over, and I was waiting the death penalty. I spent 2.5 years awaiting my sentencing, but those 2.5 years I spent actually on death row in California, because it was taken for granted that I was going to end up there anyway. So 2.5 years of isolation. And I'm talking now about a cell with no mattress, no bedding, no radio, no TV, no books, no paper, nothing. Me, the walls, my own head. What do? You go a little crazy. You learn a lot about yourself. So I had a lot of time to think. Eventually, I worked my way up to 1 piece of paper and a half of a pencil was broken off. And I started to write. I had a black widow who lived in the corner of my window. It was a window with bars, and I had about this much space between each bar. And she lived right in the corner. There was no screen. And I called her Charlotte, of course. What else? Charlotte's Web. I know, I'm old. And me and Charlotte had conversations. Eventually, my neighbor and I discovered that if we reached way out, we could touch fingers. And we could, with that method, pass little notes, because we were not allowed to talk to each other through the doors or through the bars on the front side. So we would pass notes. But there was Charlotte in the corner, exactly where my hand was going to go, where my arm was going to go. So I talked to Charlotte. I said, look, we got to do this. Don't bite, okay? Charlotte said, okay, give me a fly. So I gave her a fly. And then I watched her eat up that fly. That was fascinating. 2.5 years. I started to write. That's where I was going with this. And in the beginning, it was just like one meaning. The grass smelled good this morning when they cut it. I wonder if it will still smell that way in the morning. Question mark. And every day I wrote a meaning. And that meaning had a question mark. So as long as I could find something to put a question mark with, it was okay. That was not the day for me to end it all. And believe me, you can get very creative when you decide to end it all. You don't need a whole lot of equipment. So 2.5 years passed. Eventually, the highest court in the land decided that if you hadn't actually personally killed anyone, then you couldn't get the death penalty. So I was out from under. Along comes a plea bargain and a deal. My sentence was going to be 25 to life. If you're good, you can get paroled in 12.5 years, said my attorney. Okay. So I signed the paper, and my time started. The bigger prison. Now this was a place built for 950 women. But eventually it would be almost 3,000. Can you put up the first, back there. That was my world for 28 years. So I started my time. I learned something very early on. I thought I knew the streets. I mean, I'd been a junkie. I'd been out in San Francisco streets. I mean, I was down. I was cool. I knew the game. I didn't know shit. I got there and I had to learn all over again. A good friend said to me, see everything, hear everything, say nothing. That's what I followed all those years. In 1985, my son was killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. His father died the same day of a heart attack when he found out that our son was dead. At that point, I picked up the only thing I knew could ease it a little bit, heroin. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it in prisons. And until 1989, I used heroin in prison. Yes, it's possible. But in '89, I got busted, and I ended up in isolation. Security housing unit, SHU, infamous. And there I woke up. There I woke up and realized what my life, my decisions, what they had cost. Not just life damage, my family, the families of the murder victims, my son, my mom, so everything that it had cost me. And I asked, please, please, take me out of here. And I meant it. I meant it. And I didn't mean the prison. I meant life. Or show me. Show me a way. Nothing happened. I mean, I woke up the next morning. Okay, I knew you didn't exist. But when I got out, things started to happen immediately. I met a woman who was very involved in an organization of addicts who help one another. They remain anonymous, and I will leave it at that. And I started to see things a little bit differently. I had to make a choice, because now I wasn't just floating along anymore. I had floated along since I was 14 years old. Now I had to make a choice. Did I really want to be here? Because I understood now. Life meant life. I was never, ever going to walk out of this prison. Cop killers don't get parole. That's it. So if I was going to choose to hang around, I had to make that decision. I had to find something else. So I stopped looking at just me, poor me, and I started to see around me. I started to take a real look at the women around me. These were cast-offs. They were the unwanted, the undesirables, the screw-ups. But within these women, there was a strength. There was empathy. There was compassion. There was very special stuff. And so I started investing where I found myself. I started helping them to write letters. Many couldn't read or write. I helped them to write writs, helped them with their kids, because there, more or less, when you go to prison, you lose your children. That's it. So a lot of women tried to get their kids back. I helped them to write to the courts. We had a group called the Women's Advisory Council, which was a group of women, 5 women, who represented the prisoners to the administration. It fell to these women to take the complaints and the wishes of the population, which was now up to 2,500, and take them further to the prison administration. And the leader, the president, was voted on by all of the prisoners. Now we're talking about all ethnicities. Black, white, Mexican, Asians, everybody. We're talking about gangs who look at each other and want to kill each other, whom they try to keep separated. But all of these people have to come together to elect somebody to represent them. And that person ended up being me. Talk about trust. Talk about faith in somebody. This was huge, to have all of these people, of all of these groups, all of these gangs and ethnicities, but they gave me their trust. That was big. That showed me possibilities. It also taught me a lot about diplomacy, negotiation, compromising. When you have 2,500 prisoners on this side that want something, and in a prison administration on this side that wants to give nothing, and you're in the middle, you learn how to communicate, you learn how to fight, and you learn which battles to fight. So, I continued in that mode. I found my place, my space. I made a choice to go forward, to live, to invest in my community where I was. During these years, I also grew a family. Family doesn't have to mean blood. Family are those who love you. Families, that's who stands by your side when all else fails. Family is the one that picks you up when you're sitting on the floor crying. And these women became my family, a group of about 20. I asked for parole a number of times, but the last time was the hardest. In the United States, the process is that the victim's next of kin take an active part in the parole process. They get to come, they get to witness the execution, if there is one. And they also get to partake in the parole process. So this police officer's wife had always been there in the past, but this time it was his daughter. His daughter was 10 when he died, same age as my son at that time, and now it was her turn. And that hearing is one I will never forget. It ripped my heart out. To have to listen to her pain and her anger of what she felt about me asking for parole. Before I went in, I was told that I had next of kin there, but I was not to even turn one eyelash in their direction. And if I did, I would be dragged out and locked up in the shoe. When this woman shared her anger, her anguish, and her pain, all she saw was a woman who refused to even turn her face, to even give her the most foundational, the most basic eye contact, face contact when you're speaking to someone. So what she took was that I was just this cold, uncaring person. But she didn't see after she left. I couldn't stand. They had to support me to get me out of that room. It took everything out of me to take in all of her pain. I really didn't know if I wanted to continue. I was really at a crossroads. And I think I would have given up then and there. But then came the next chapter. I think the next picture that is my cell. That was my world. But there you see what saved my life. Because I found out that we were going to be training dogs for handicapped people in wheelchairs. And I immediately signed up. 20 people, 20 women out of over 2,000 were going to be chosen. And I was lucky enough to be a part of it. That is Aspen, a white poodle who was my first. And I think if it hadn't been for the dogs coming in, if Aspen hadn't come into my life at that time, I'm not used to doing this in English, I think I would have given up. But you see, there's not much there. I mean, that is the world. We lived triple-decker. Aspen lived under the bed, then it was me, and then it was my roommate. And you're very close. When you're sitting on the toilet, believe me, you're like this close. But Aspen graduated. Eventually, he had to leave. And you know, I fell in love with every one of them. I trained a whole bunch of dogs. They came in about 4 months old, and they left 8, 9 months old, or a year sometimes. They learned over 50 commands. Take off clothes, get stuff out of the refrigerator, pick up things. They could pick up a mint from the ground. They were incredible. But there he is again. That was his person. That's what he graduated to do. And knowing that gave me a purpose. It gave me a will. It gave me strength. So I can say that dogs saved my life, absolutely. It gave me a reason to put my feet on the floor one more day. And today, I got out in 2009. My transfer to Sweden was approved. In 2011, I was granted complete freedom from the Department of Corrections. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I was now 60 years old. I hadn't had a job. I mean, who's going to hire a 60-year-old, you know, ex-con? Very scary. But I had friends. I had people. I had people in my corner. We cannot do this journey alone. I couldn't do it without my family in prison, and I couldn't have done it without the friends that I had out here. So I wrote my story. I wrote a book, and the rest, as they say, is history. Then I began to get requests for speaking gigs and whatever. But I had no idea what I was going to do. How do you begin life again? I hadn't seen a cell phone. I had never held a cell phone. Google, I didn't know what that was. Internet, didn't know. So, I mean, I felt like Cro-Magnon who just woke up in the 20th century. But today, and my journey is long from over, I hope, that's my angel. That's my very own. That's Tasha and my house. I picked her up in September 2011, a little puppy, 8 weeks old. I never have to give her back. I never have to let go of her. She will be mine forever. Of course, you can't own your best friend, but she will share life with me. Not only that, but she had puppies last May, and I kept one of the puppies. So I now have 2. Life is a journey, and my journey has been very, very crooked. But, you know, as Oscar said, it would be very dull if it was just like this. You know, it's the valleys that make me appreciate the highs. It's the darkness that has made me see the beauty of light. It's the not having that makes me so grateful for all the little things. I can stop in the middle of a street or wherever I am, turn around in a circle, and just go, wow, thank you. Thank you for the gifts. You know, we had, I'm way over time. Okay. But life is a journey, and mine isn't over yet. I hope to have many more chapters. And I hope that you, who are the future, you who are the dreamers, you who are the possibility makers, take strength, take love, take energy, and run with it, and change the world. Thank you.